Ukraine is no longer solely engaged on the front lines against Russian forces in occupied zones like Luhansk and Donetsk. The fight has evolved into a second covert war unfolding beyond the border and deep inside Russian territory across western central and even eastern Russia. Ukrainian drones and missiles are increasingly visible, striking vital military facilities and critical infrastructure from the sky. These repeated assaults are making it progressively more difficult for Vladimir Putin to assure his population that everything is under control. Gradually, the carefully constructed illusion of security he has fostered is being shattered, and more Russians are beginning to confront the stark reality of the conflict. This trend is noticeable across the nation, but is especially pronounced in the Bryansk region, located in western Russia, bordered by Ukraine to the south and Belarus to the north. Home to over 11 million residents and spanning roughly 13,458 square miles, Bryansk's proximity to Ukraine has made it a frequent target for Kiev's forces. As the pressure mounts, local officials are increasingly struggling to convince the public that their safety is guaranteed. On the night of October 20th, another Ukrainian raid struck Bryansk, offering a clear contrast in how Kremlin officials reported the events versus the coverage from local media within the region. In Moscow, the Russian Defense Ministry issued a brief statement claiming that only 2 Ukrainian drones had crossed the border from Chernihiv into Bryansk before being swiftly downed by Russian air defenses. The official narrative emphasized that there were no casualties, no injuries, and no damage. If accurate, this would portray the event as negligible, just a minor incident. This, however, is the narrative the Kremlin wants the public to accept. Local media in Bryansk, however, told a different story. Reports from Klintsy, a town of around 60,000 near the southwestern corner of the region, close to both Belarus and Ukraine, described a night filled with tension and fear. Air raid sirens blared, anti-aircraft fire cracked through the night, and mobile machine gun crews attempted to neutralize incoming drones. Footage shared on the Astra Telegram channel confirmed the chaotic scenarios, showing air raid alerts on television screens and panic in the streets. Local sources detailed multiple drone impacts and damage to several buildings, with a teenage boy injured at the scene. The Telegram channel we listened to Klintsy reported overnight Ukrainian forces attacked Klintsy using fixed-wing UAVs. A teenager born in 2010 was injured. Ambulance crews provided immediate care. Windows in 2 apartment buildings were shattered and 3 civilian vehicles were damaged by shrapnel. Authorities will assess the damage in the morning. Even Governor Alexander Bogomaz acknowledged the events on his Telegram page. More vile attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces against civilians. A detailed inspection of the damage will be carried out in the morning. These contrasting narratives highlight the gap between Kremlin messaging and on-the-ground reality. Those tracking the war understand this pattern. When Ukraine successfully strikes Russian soil, Kremlin propaganda springs into action, downplaying or denying the damage. Statements often claim minimal or zero impact to military installations, refineries, ports, or production plants, despite evidence to the contrary. This is a familiar tactic. By obscuring the truth, manipulating narratives, and controlling information, Putin maintains the perception of complete control, assuring some Russians that the special military operation proceeds as planned. This strategy also fosters an illusion of safety, allowing citizens to feel shielded from the conflict. Even those skeptical of the war's purpose can believe that officials are safeguarding their daily lives, and that threats like drones or missiles won't reach their communities. Regional governors and local officials typically echo Kremlin statements, reinforcing the message that all is well and that victory is imminent, a method reminiscent of Orwell's 1984. But this is reality, not fiction, and the illusion is rapidly dissolving under Ukraine's continued pressure. Even usually compliant media and local officials in Bryansk are now reporting incidents in vivid detail. The reason is simple: the frequency and visibility of attacks make it impossible to maintain the pretense that all is well. The damage and fear are too evident to ignore. On October 20th, another attack wounded a Russian serviceman, Ivan Slabchenko, in the Suzumsky district. According to Astra sources, he sustained multiple injuries in an FPV drone strike, while local authorities typically avoid reporting such incidents. Bryansk residents are increasingly aware of these events because they are witnessing them firsthand. Other recent incidents include a drone strike on an agricultural facility in Trubchevsk, which, while causing no human casualties, killed livestock and poultry. Though unusual, this illustrates the broader pattern of Ukraine targeting infrastructure vital to Russia's military and economy, including command posts, airfields, energy facilities, and oil infrastructure. In late September, a Ukrainian drone and missile strike hit the Elektrodietel factory in Karachev, a manufacturer of crucial military components. The Ukrainian General Staff claimed responsibility, noting the factory produced electrical connectors for military and civilian applications. Explosions and fires were captured on social media, illustrating the extent of the damage. Days later, further attacks targeted 3 energy sector facilities: the Klintsy thermal power plant, an electrical substation, and an oil pipeline pumping station. At least 2 missiles hit the thermal plant, cutting gas supplies and leaving over half of Klintsy residents without heat. Additional attacks affected the Druzhba pipeline, the 8N line dispatch station, and the NATO Pavichi substation, causing temporary power outages. As Ukrainian forces continue these operations, tens of thousands of people witness missiles in their skies and fires erupting with footage often shared online despite Kremlin restrictions. Bryansk, due to its location, energy infrastructure, and wooded terrain, has become a key site for drone missile and commando operations. Electrical grids, power plants, and pipeline nodes have been disrupted, leaving millions without electricity or heat. Ukrainian saboteurs, including members of the Atesh partisan movement, have struck communications towers, temporarily disabling border monitoring along a 100-mile stretch of the Russia-Ukraine border. Governor Bogomaz described these acts as cowardly, emphasizing the threat to civilians and military personnel, but the ongoing pattern proves that Bryansk can no longer be portrayed as safe. Even rare events like the shooting down of a Russian Mi-8 helicopter by a drone highlight the reach of Ukrainian operations. This strategic pressure dates back to 2024, when Ukrainian forces struck a massive ammunition depot near Karachev, exposing vulnerabilities in Russian defenses. The strikes destroyed North Korean artillery shells, missiles, and glide bombs stored in the open, causing logistical challenges for the Russian army and reducing their offensive capabilities. The depot itself was meant to be a highly secure location protecting critical munitions for ongoing operations. However, Ukrainian intelligence identified weaknesses in the storage and planned a highly effective strike. The attack not only physically destroyed significant quantities of weaponry, but also demonstrated that Russian logistics and supply chains were vulnerable. The destruction forced Russian forces to halt or slow certain planned offensives, while they replaced lost munitions and reorganized supply routes. The loss created immediate operational gaps and required commanders to rethink deployment strategies, highlighting how critical infrastructure, if inadequately protected, could be exploited by an agile and well-informed adversary. The strike also demonstrated the precision and effectiveness of Ukrainian reconnaissance, allowing them to hit high-value assets deep within Russian-controlled territory without suffering losses themselves. Beyond the tactical effects, the strike had strategic consequences as it undermined confidence within Russian military. Planning showed that even secure depots were vulnerable and caused delays and inefficiencies across multiple units relying on these munitions for combat readiness. The psychological effect on troops and local officials was notable, as it forced acknowledgement of Russian weaknesses and highlighted the growing reach and capability of Ukrainian forces. Overall, the 2024 Karachev depot strike exemplifies how targeted precision attacks can create cascading effects on military operations. By destroying essential munitions and exposing gaps in defense, it effectively reduced Russian offensive capacity while boosting Ukrainian morale and demonstrating the increasing sophistication of Kyiv's operational planning. Since then, Bryansk has endured increasingly frequent attacks, with Bogomaz himself admitting the frequency has tripled. His emotionally charged statements, though propagandistic, reveal that local officials can no longer deny the ongoing Ukrainian operations. The war is visible to the public, and Russian citizens are beginning to experience it directly, exactly as Ukraine intends. By exposing civilians to the reality of the conflict, Kyiv aims to shatter Kremlin propaganda, provoke frustration, and foster dissent among the population.
For more than half a century, Russian fighter jets have ruled the skies. They are more than machines. They are symbols of power, pride, and an unbreakable spirit. Born from decades of innovation and forged through countless battles, these aircraft have carried Russia's strength across the world. From the frozen runways of Siberia to the blazing deserts of Syria, Russian jets have proven their might in training, in combat, and in history. Their roars echo as a reminder that dominance in the sky is built on precision, power, and courage. Today, we count down the top 5 most powerful Russian fighter jets, each one a masterpiece of engineering, each one the pride of the Russian Air Force.